Hi, today I wanted to talk about dowry harassment. It's still a very prevalent issue around the world. Let me describe what a dowry is for those who really don't understand what it is. Money, goods, property that a bride's family gives a groom at the time of marriage. That's basically the basic definition of what a dowry is, right? Originally, it was intended to provide the bride with financial security. Right, that was the original reason, but somehow along the way it became a transactional issue. In some cultures, without a dowry, there's no marriage. This issue has been part of many societies, particularly in Eurasia, for centuries, right? And it's also practiced even today, despite the fact that legally it's illegal. The symbol status of this, because it does have a symbol status and serves as a way to solidify, remember this, the alliance between families, as I said before. It also displays the wealth and the social status of the girl. If she's going to marry into a big family, or the boy's family would ask a certain amount of money. This has been very prevalent in medieval Europe, the sub-Saharan Africa, South Asia, in Islamic cultures. So it's not something that's only prevalent in Southeast Asia or South Asia, for that matter. So now my next point is, how did it become a harassment? Right? Because it's become a financial transaction between families, and the mother-in-law, who is the main instigator, who feels that her son requires a certain amount of money because of his status. This can turn into harassment, a form of violence against women, which is an illegal practice, mind you, especially when the dowry is not enough, according to his mother, in most cases. Dowry debts, for example, in India, statistically, that are reported, right, about 7,000 cases. Now, this is a reported cases, okay? The country has over 1.4 billion people. So, and marriages happen every day. This particular custom happens every day. Women dying every day. But it's not reported because it's kind of looked upon as suicide in most cases. Or families just bury their kids and don't talk about it because of the shame that it brings to their family. I can go on to say in Pakistan, they say it's 2,000 dowry deaths annually. In Bangladesh, they're saying it's 4,000 deaths annually. You know, there's a lot of underreporting of this issue in actual cases. And as, you know, one of the things that our foundation has done over the last, 20 years is really work with women in their communities about this issue. The times that we have had good fortune of actually helping women before they either burn to death or end up committing suicide because they can't handle the harassment. We've had to take them to a safe house, protect their identity for a little while, and very similar to a domestic violence case. Really engage with their families who are also, some of these cases, their families are not wanting to be part of this. They are embarrassed and feel like the girl has done them more harm. The young woman who has just moved into a family that is harassing her or abusing her has nowhere to go. She can't go back to her own home, and she can't go to her new home due to the fact of the dowry issue. And she has to find a way to survive in a society that shuns women who've either been divorced, walked away from their marriages because of abuse, and, trying to make it in a world where it's a big taboo subject. So one of the big parts of our work is mental health, because we have to spend a lot of time making sure these women feel safe, again, in order to walk back into society, because it's a form of PTSD. I want to talk about the factors associated with dowry harassment right now, and one of the biggest issues, mother-in-laws, mother-in-laws, sister-in-laws, themselves, who experienced this before, still make demands of the new bride coming into their family. And instead of using the whole experience to help eliminate the issue, they continue the trauma through generations. The socioeconomic status in the region, right? Dowry demands are found in not just lower slum areas, but even in high caste and the higher parts of society. Most of these deaths not just happen in one part of, for example, if we pick India, it's not just happening in one part of India. It's actually happening all around the country. In some parts, the husband's alcoholism, his inability to stand up to his family because he wants to have peace, or his inability to understand that he's supposed to make sure that his new bride feels comfortable in his home. Again, there's so many social systemic issues within this issue, which one has to keep in mind. Women as a whole in some of these cultures have a hold of the house, right? Why? Because the men kind of go out and work. And most of the violence happens in the house because these women who get married don't really go out to work. They tend to come into the family, and then they do a lot of the chores around the house, giving the mother-in-law a break. The type of harassment and violence, emotional abuse, which kind of goes into humiliation, controlling behavior, a lot of verbal abuse. The physical violence is a very big issue. Beatings, burnings, torture, isolation, withholding. Economic abuse in this issue is like they withhold money, they confiscate all her belongings, they force her into rooms and lock her up until money comes in from her family, putting a lot of pressure on her as well as her family. Sexual violence, of course, which is, always related to these issues. The bride burning part and the murder was something that we worked on a lot over the last 20 years. Many of those do not go reported and police don't get involved because it's a family affair. These women are targeted when they're cooking, either doused with kerosene or they light their saris up so that they would burn. Some of them survive and are traumatized and suffer the consequences and are pushed out of the house where they can't really go home or stay. And so we find places for them to get mental health treatment and health treatment. It's very important to understand that in most of these cases, we do not release the identity of these women and we do not force them into traumatic situations where they have to come up and talk about the trauma that they've just experienced. I think that, some of the mental issues that come out of this anxiety and depression and suicidal tendencies, emotional traumas are so high, they're triggering effects, if not kind of nurtured and taught how to handle some of the triggering effects. The physical injuries, obviously, where they need medical treatment, and sometimes heals, and sometimes it's a reminder of the trauma that they've had. So the way I identify with this is a soldier going to war, and no one really understands what they've experienced. And as much as you say you can, and as much as you say you identify, you really don't. We can think we do, but the blow to the psyche is so severe that the trust factor goes out the door. And when they are not loved or embraced by people, they feel abandoned. And that fear of abandonment causes a whole stack of other issues. We as an organization have really spent a lot of time over the last 20 odd years working in villages around the world, educating, talking to women, giving them tools that they would at least try and find solutions, create a better society for themselves, an environment for themselves and the new young women coming in. Because one of the things that this has created is the abortion issue of young female fetuses. And because a child is a burden because of the dowry issue. And although dowry law was implemented in 1961, for example, in India, under Section 498A, it's not really upheld. And it's so much part of the culture and part of an old way of being and thinking that it is carried in the bags migrants around the world. So when they leave their homes, they carry that tradition with them, and they may go to the UK, to Australia, to America, to South America, to Europe, wherever they may go, they carry that tradition with them. So we still have the same issues carrying on in homes, and it's hushed and it's never talked about, because arranged marriage tends to cross borders, and in many cases when you're isolated and you come to a new country, you don't know who to turn to and you don't trust anybody, and when you are being abused, it breaks you, and very few people are able to stand up to that breaking and understand that it's wrong and find a solution, but most people break down. So as a society, if you do see, we would like you to say something, either notify your police departments or work with organizations that can make sure that they uphold the law to protect women against this, because it is domestic violence. It's emotional abuse, it's physical abuse, and in some cases it's murder. And as a collective, and with the rapid migration of people around the world, it's important that we recognize it and really work together to educate. If you can't change a certain thing in a culture, you need to re-educate them as to why this situation was created in the first place, and eventually try and eliminate it. Thank you.